Here with Coach Ladner, getting ready for Southern Miss men's basketball practice. I think maybe second
one, right.
practice you had. Got to come the first. How do you think? How do you feel about the practice so far? You know, you've only had the one practice, but how do you feel the effort was?
I will say this: huge improvement from the first one that we had back at the start of June. So, you know, it shows you, you know, it's a process, the importance of just the everyday practice in terms of organization. We were so much further along. You know, every minute to this team is critical. We're so young, large incoming class of newcomers, very few older hands, lost a lot of really good players off last year's team. But I was really pleased with the effort in our first day last week and excited about getting back to work today. Really, you know, you coming in off Labor Day, there's always an urgency as we get closer to the season, and I think now the players can start sensing that a little bit. So anyway, I was very pleased with our first day last week and anxious to kind of get going today.
How do you feel retention was from what I guess what you taught in the spring till now? How do you feel retention was?
Well, I'll answer that two ways. First of all, we had two late additions. Well, actually three late additions to the roster that weren't here at all in the summer. And the way I can answer that is the difference that they had. The other guys that had been here were so much further along than those guys, not in terms of talent or potential, but in terms of just organization. And you know, obviously when we get those guys, those three guys are all smart basketball players and they'll catch on quickly. But it was amazing to me how much further along the guys that had been here, and again, you mentioned the word retention, which is exactly the right word, that they had retained from this summer. So I was glad to see that.
You got the young man from, we call him Encino Man just because of the movie and being from Estonia. But can you talk about him a little bit? Just how he's looked since he's been on campus. He looks like he's got a nice shot.
He's you know, Heath, you're too young, and probably a lot of your listeners and people that keep up with your blog may be too young. But back when I was growing up, there was a player named Kiki Vandeweghe. He's actually an NBA executive now who was a great player with the Denver Nuggets. And from the time that I saw him, his game reminds me of Kiki Vandeweghe's. A long forward, but not a traditional post-up guy. He's a guy that can step out and shoot it and do some things with the basketball. I really think Artur, you're talking about Artur Kanatzik, I really think that Artur is going to have a great career here before he's all said and done. He's like any other freshman. He's got a long way to go. He's just learning. He's very green. But he's as advertised in what we thought as a longer player that is skilled with the ball and can really shoot.
Last question, does he have a transition period to go to learning from maybe the European game, the floor, the way it's done to this now? Is there going to be a transition period, and how's he doing with that?
Absolutely. You know, first of all, basketball in certain areas of the world, and it's if you're paying attention right now to what's going on with the World Cup, you can see even though we don't have our top tier, most of our top tier players playing, they are really struggling. And they're winning, but you know, I saw they beat Turkey last night by one, or this morning, whatever time that was. But you know,
it ain't dream team.
Correct. And he's a great example of that. Is basketball worldwide is catching up to the United States, and we need to realize that as far as the country. But second of all, players are coming in more ready, and he actually can do some things. Maybe that American kids are growing up on too much ESPN and highlights, and what's on an ESPN basketball highlight, it's almost always a dunk. And so that's what we're being indoctrinating our younger players. That's not happening in Europe. You don't see those guys. They're playing basketball the way it used to be played in the United States in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And now that we've gotten away from that, hopefully we'll learn from it as a country. But by the same token, those guys, your question was about Artur, and those guys are coming in more ready to play the American game, I think, probably than any other time. So that's good for us in this particular case.
Well, Coach, we appreciate it. Best of luck practice. Thank you for speaking with us.
Always.
We'll speak to you down the road.
Anytime.